Hello music lovers, music fans, and music freaks like me. Welcome to my channel. My name is Caesar Pink.
Let your mama down. Let your mama down. Let your mama down. Baby, please.
Today we're going to be checking out a video by Yoko Ono.
You promised me, you promised me, you promised me, you promised me.
But first, all the proceeds from this channel are donated to the Arete Living Arts Foundation, a non-profit arts organization. So please like and subscribe. To support us, join our Patreon or make a private donation. It's tax deductible. Now, as most people probably know, Yoko is one of the most hated, mocked, and bullied women of all time. So that makes it kind of interesting to check her out. A personal disclosure, I think she's fantastic. Start off with a little of her history. She was born into a wealthy family in Japan, but during the war fell into extreme poverty to the point that she and her family, she was just a child, were roaming through fields looking for roots to eat. After the war, her family built themselves back up to be wealthy. She, when it came time for her to go to college, she wanted to study piano. Her father wouldn't allow her to do that because it wasn't considered proper for a female to learn to play the piano or study piano. So her first year she studied opera, vocal technique in opera. And then in the second year, I guess her father loosened up and she was able to study piano. In the gossip columns at the time, it was rumored that she would marry a prince, a son of the emperor, but that did not happen. At some point, I forget the reason why, but she moved to the US and finished college there. I read a book by a woman who was Yoko's roommate during that period. This woman was also part of the Beat movement. And the book was called Beat Hotel, but it was interesting what she had to say about living with Yoko. She said that she was very involved in art projects, but that was the period when she was first developing her experimental vocal style, and she would come home and Yoko would be laying on the couch making these dramatic vocalizations, and Yoko explained that she wanted to create the sounds of childbirth. Now Yoko was involved in the Fluxus movement and was quite a known figure in that movement. She worked with John Cage. John Cage is a famous experimental classical composer. The earliest recording I've ever heard of Yoko was, I think it was a Terry Riley piece, and it was a jazz piece, and Yoko was doing her vocalization thing over that, and it worked quite well. She was married to a Japanese classical musician, Tochi Ikiyanagi. My apologies for butchering that. Let's see. But she was a performance artist. Did many showings and had art exhibitions. She was within the art world. She was quite famous long before she met John Lennon. I remember reading about one of her performances where I believe she took a vase and smashed it into pieces and then gave the pieces to all the people in the audience. And then she set a date for 10 years later where she said, everyone will come back together and we'll put the vase back together at that time. I don't know what happened 10 years later, but it was an interesting idea. And she has another very famous piece called the cut piece. And it's so famous that an artist I know from, I forget what European country she was from, but she recreated that piece for her own performance, and I think many other people have done that over the years. But what happened is she just sits on the table, on the floor, on a stage, and people are allowed to come up and take a pair of scissors and cut one piece out of her dress. And just in a line, people came and did this. When I watched the piece, what struck me is her vulnerability during that. She seemed very fragile and maybe even a little bit scared. Let's watch a little bit of that.
Very delicate. It might take some time. I'll make a piece for Playboy.
It's a very interesting performance. I'd like to look at it a little. I think this is just a recording of a work she did with John Cage, the experimental classical musician that I mentioned. if the only music you're familiar with is mainstream commercial music, that might seem pretty strange to you, let's say. But this was the 1960s. It was a time when people were asking a lot of big questions in the art world. They are asking, what is art? What is music? And it was a time when all of the arts were expanding their boundaries of what they could do. And within the culture as well, we were asking a lot of big questions and really moving beyond a lot of oppression and taboos that were a part of American culture. Now, a guy who came along a little later, he was more of a 70s guy, started out in the punk or no wave movement in New York. His name is John Zorn. And let's watch a little bit of Yoko working with John Zorn. Now, that brings back my first experience really with Yoko Ono. She held a free concert in Central Park, and I went there not really knowing what to expect. It was very crowded, and I knew Yoko's music mainly from her, I think it's called Broken Glass album. And during that one, she didn't really do the nonverbal vocalizations. It was basic, it was singing in a fairly normal way. So when I went to the show, I thought, people hate the moaning and screaming so much. She'll probably just do the songs. So she came out, and the band was kind of like a grunge band. Her son, it was, I think, her son's band, Sean, and John Zorn was actually in that band as well. So she comes out and does nothing but songs that were nonverbal vocalizations. And the effect it had on the audience, and myself included, was amazing. I noticed it first in myself, and then as it went on, I, could see and hear that it was affecting a lot of other people the same way. But it touched something deep, something very primal. It made you feel like you wanted to cry, but in a happy way. It was very strange, and the audience was going crazy. People were yelling, "We love you, Yoko! We love you, Yoko!" So it was kind of magical in a way. It's really something I wouldn't have predicted, and I doubt it's something you can understand unless you experience it firsthand. Another early experience I had with Yoko is she had a show at the Japan Center in New York City, and it had, she's worked in so many mediums, not only performance art, but writing books, making films, making, visual art, sculptures and paintings. And it was, I left that going, this is the most fun and thought-provoking art exhibition I've ever been to. When you walked in, the first thing you saw was, for the art world, her famous chess piece. Now the chessboard is set up on a table and chairs, but all the pieces are white, so the two sides are playing against each other, but they're all the same. And I suppose that's an apt analogy to war, humans going to war with each other, based on whatever differences, but in the end, we're all human. The next thing, before I went up the steps, was a wish tree. Basically, it was like this little tree where people would write their wishes down and hang them on there. And I spent a long time reading those wishes, and it was heartbreaking. I guess it's kind of a traditional thing in Japanese culture, but it was the first time I experienced it, and it was very emotional and very amazing. Now, within the exhibition, they had a lot of famous pieces she did from the 60s, one being the one that had to do with when she met John Lennon. It was basically you climb up a ladder, and at the top of the ladder there was a magnifying glass, and there was one tiny word written up on the ceiling, and you would take the magnifying glass, and when you looked at it, it said yes. Now Lennon said that when he did this, he liked that because, he thought if it said no or something negative or was a trick, he would have been turned off by it. But it said yes. There was another one, I forget what it's called, maybe half a kitchen or half a person. But basically it was a room kind of cut in half. And I believe all the appliances and the table and everything were cut in half as well. It was very interesting. And then there were some, more human things like little tiny art pieces, like little rocks with inscriptions on them, I think they were, that she sold at a table at a craft fair when she was very young. A young woman, but something she was selling for $1 or something at the time. And there were pages that seemed like they came from the Grapefruit Book. The Grapefruit Book is a book of kind of basically art instructions, but they're kind of thought-provoking and philosophical. It might be. Oh, give me 1 second, see if I can find it.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
I know I have it, but I can't seem to find it. Excuse me. An example from the Great Book, this would be an instruction for you to do an art piece in your head. Imagine the clouds are dripping. Dig a hole in your garden. Put them in. I guess put them in would mean the drips from the clouds. Here's another one. It's titled Painting to be Stepped On. Leave a canvas or a finished painting on the floor or in the streets for a long time. And it's that much. Another pulse piece. Listen to each other's pulse by putting your ear on the other's stomach. Now this book, John Lennon gave this book credit for the inspiration and even some of the words for the Imagine song. At the time he wrote it, he didn't give her credit. He later said that, she should have had credit, but he wasn't a strong enough person to share at that time. later she did get credit for it. Trying to think the type of credit, songwriting credit, but also publishing credit. Other thing in the exhibition was some of her movies that were projected on the wall. She has one, I forget what it was called, but it was basically a collage of famous people's asses as they're walking away. There's another famous one called Fly, and it's basically, I think it's just close-ups of a fly on a woman's body, but it, you know, walks around and flies back. But she did a lot of experimental films, kind of in the type of Andy Warhol's early films, but maybe a little bit more complex than those. And then a few years ago, I saw another one-woman show of hers at the Museum of Modern Art. Among the things there, Yoko had a famous thing she called her bag piece, and she would do that on stage with other musicians, and she would just be in a kind of black burlap bag, and she would do her vocalizations from in there. And she said part of it was shyness, but part of it was also a way to separate what she's doing vocally from the image the public has of her as an artist, as a person. And that's a really interesting idea to me, because every musician also has a public persona that they either create consciously or subconsciously, and really every human being has that, although most people do it subconsciously. So that's a very interesting idea to me, like, take the part of yourself, you know, in this case, her singing, and put that out, but hide everything else. But that too was a very, very fun exhibition. But let's go ahead and listen to the song. This is a song from the album Yoko released not long after Lennon's death. The song is called No, No, No. And it's kind of a punk, new wave-ish type song. Here we go.
Let me take my scarf off. No, 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 yes, yes, yes. Don't help me, I can't do it, and you know it. Don't touch me, don't like it. Don't help me, I can't do it, and you know it. Don't touch me, don't like it. Let me take my glass off. No, no, no. Yes, yes, yes. Don't help me, I can't do it, and you know it. Don't touch me, I don't like it. No, no, no. Yes, don't help me, I can't do it, and you know it. Don't touch me, you promised me, you promised me, you promised me. I don't remember what you promised. I know you didn't keep it. You promised me, you promised me, you promised me. Take my pants off. You promised me. No, no, no. I don't remember what you promised. I just don't want it. You'd sing it from Hudson when we.
Now, I actually find the verse lyrics, at first I find them a little bit humorous, but then when it gets to the chorus, I find it very sad and touching and emotional. Let's look at the lyrics for a second. Okay, it starts off, let me take my scarf off. No, no, no. And she says that in kind of a low, male voice. or no, she said no, no, no in a female voice, and then a lower yes, yes voice, as if a male is saying yes, take it off. She says, don't help me, and then in a kind of an assertive voice, she says, help me. So I think that's almost like a subconscious, her conscious mind is like, no, don't help me, but the subconscious is, yes, please help me. Then she says, I can do it, and you know it. Don't touch me. And then the subconscious voice says, touch me. And then her conscious voice says, I don't like it. Second verse, let me take my blouse off. No, no, no. The male voice, yes, yes, yes. Don't help me. Help me. I can do it, and you know it. Don't touch me. Touch me. I don't like it. But for the chorus, the tone changes, and she's singing more. She sings, you promised me, you promised me. She repeats that. I don't remember what you promised. I know you didn't keep it. Now, the reason that moves me is it feels like it's to Lennon. And that almost seems like something that might be between husband and wife. Like, you promise me. Maybe that promise is, I would love you forever. I'll be with you to the end. Or it could be something else. She doesn't even remember what it is, but she had that feeling. And because he's gone, he wasn't able to keep that promise. So that really moves me, actually. But I find these lyrics really good. Okay, let's go on here, and we'll come back to the lyrics then, because there's something really funny I just noticed, and I never knew that lyric before. Here we go.
Let's do it. Let me take my ring off. No, no, no. Yes, yes, yes. Don't do it. I can't do it. I'm seeing broken glass when we do it. Do it. You promised me. You promised me. You promised me. You promised me. I don't remember what we promised, but I know we didn't keep it. You promised me, you promised me, you promised me, you promised me. I don't remember what we promised, but I miss you.
You should remember this one because you know why? I learned this from my daddy, you know. Once upon a time, there was this little boy who said, would you tell me that old story? You can see it can end anywhere. It can end just a little story.
Okay, let's look at those lyrics. Okay, the next verse is, let me take my pants off, no, no, no. The male voice, yes, yes, yes. Don't hold me, I don't want it. You're thinking of Rock Hudson when we do it. Let's do it. Now, Rock Hudson was a famous classic actor who, turned out to be gay. I don't know if he died of AIDS or what it was, but anyways, I thought that was a funny line. Now the next one, let me take my ring off. I assume that's the wedding ring. No, 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 yes, 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 don't do it, do it. I can do it. Oh, she says, I can't do it. I'm seeing broken glass when we do it. Broken glass, based on the album cover, is John Lennon's glasses that he was wearing when he was shot, which were cracked. Then it's to the chorus, you promise me, I don't remember what we promised. It's interesting that she switched the you to we this time, and then she just ends, but I miss you. Now there's also a fantastic guitar bit in there that comes, you know, kind of in a aggressive, atonal, off-kilter guitar that really suits the mood of the piece perfectly. Very punk sounding. And you know, there are people who call Yoko the godmother or the original punk because she does embody that spirit in a sense. You know, she did whatever she wanted, even though people hated it, people hated her. She was always pushing the boundaries. And I feel that there's truth in that. Now, of course, people hate her. She's constantly being brought up as being a horrible vocalist, and you know, it's an insult if you call vocalist similar to Yoko Ono. And when she came out to the mainstream public, it was pretty shocking. Of course, people hated her also due to racism, sexism, and because of the ridiculous myth that she somehow broke up the Beatles. But really, by the time the punk era came, by the time the 90s came, there were a lot of artists who were becoming influenced by Yoko. Among those, of course, a famous one is the B-52s, who really, particularly with Rock Lobster, really did things that could be considered imitations of her techniques. Others listed, I see, this is an AI overview, so be skeptical. Kate Bush, I don't see that one too much. Bjork, I can definitely see that. Sonic Youth, Fiona Apple, I can definitely see that. Tori Amos, I don't know. Patti Smith, The Flaming Lips. In the 90s, Sibo Matto, I think they're called, a Japanese group, or maybe it's just two females. Right now, Japan is having a great movement and moment of female rockers come out. And, you know, my favorite group is Otoboke Beaver. You can definitely see how perhaps her vocal style might be influenced by Yoko, although she has a song she wrote, Don't Call Me Yoko Ono, Fuck. So that's pretty funny, but people like Mariko Goto, Anno, another favorite of mine. From the 90s and continuing on, not only the idea of noise as being a part of music, but also just the Japanese style has filtered into our culture a lot more. And I mean, it's interesting because on one hand, Yoko studied opera, as a vocalist. She was a serious piano player and studied piano in college. Lennon said he wrote Imagine when he woke up and heard Yoko playing a classical music piece on the piano. But, I think the two biggest influence on her real, the basis of her style are, number one, modern Japanese, or maybe just the Japanese accent. But also, if you listen to really traditional Japanese folk music, you'll hear Yoko in it. You'll hear that root in some of her songs. So, I think a lot of it was just, every culture has their own idea what is good and bad singing. It's kind of a random thing that people believe unconsciously. And 60s, 70s, and even now, some people think noise is not part of that, or atonal notes are not part of that. But also, anything from any other culture is kind of mysterious and not necessarily considered good singing. As I said, punk brought in noise as a part of music, and it became more normalized. But also, if you go back, like what Jimi Hendrix was doing, that's kind of the same as what Yoko Ono was doing, but somehow American culture took that and brought it, became a part of mainstream acceptance. But I think Japanese music has really infiltrated American music in sort of subtle ways that has made what Yoko does something people can understand more. But anyways, thank you for visiting our channel. Please like and subscribe. If you have any thoughts on Yoko and her music, please post them. If you have any thoughts on the experimental classical music movement in the 50s and 60s that brought us people like John Cage or Terry Riley, I'd like to hear about that. A side note, Terry Riley got into mainstream musical culture by The Who, the famous Who song Bab O'Reilly. The Riley part is a reference to Terry Riley. The Babo has to do with Townsend's Indian Guru. But the part of that is Terry Riley was an early user of tape loops. We actually record something, cut a piece of tape, and wrap it around a mic stand so it repeats. And it's kind of the analog version of the loops that everybody uses today. And the beginning of Bab O'Reilly has that tape loop of a synthesizer. So Pete Townsend was definitely influenced by Terry Riley. Anyways, getting off the point, but thank you. If you have any other songs you'd like me to if you have any other songs you would like me to react to, please let me know. Thank you, and hope to see you again soon.